The laughter started before sunrise. It echoed across the dusty neighborhood street as people slowed their cars and pointed toward the blackened, scarred Jeep parked outside a tiny white house. The vehicle looked like it had survived a war. Its paint was burned away in places. The hood was dented. The doors carried dark scorch marks that no amount of washing could remove. Most people saw an old wreck. Some saw a joke. Only one man knew the truth. Before we begin, if you believe kindness matters more than appearances and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The owner of the Jeep was a single father named Colton Hayes. At 38 years old, Colton looked older than his age. Life had carved deep lines around his eyes. His hands were rough from years of hard work. Every morning before daylight, he left home for construction jobs across town. Every evening he returned exhausted but smiling because waiting for him inside was the most important person in his world. His 12-year-old daughter, Ava. 3 years earlier, Colton's wife had lost her battle with cancer. The disease had arrived suddenly and cruelly, leaving behind medical bills, grief, and a little girl who cried herself to sleep for months. Colton had promised his wife during her final days that he would give Ava a good life. He intended to keep that promise no matter what. The problem was that life seemed determined to test him. Construction work paid enough to survive but never enough to get ahead. Every month felt like a balancing act between rent, groceries, school expenses, and unexpected emergencies. The burned Jeep was one of those emergencies. 2 years earlier, while driving home during a severe highway accident, Colton had witnessed a vehicle burst into flames. Without thinking about his own safety, he had pulled over and rushed toward the fire. The heat had been unbearable. The smoke had been blinding. His Jeep had suffered damage from the intense blaze as he positioned it to shield trapped victims from oncoming traffic. Insurance covered almost nothing. Repairing the cosmetic damage would have cost thousands. Money Colton simply did not have. So he kept driving it. The burned Jeep became a symbol throughout the neighborhood. Teenagers laughed when it passed. Adults whispered about it. Even some co-workers joked that the vehicle belonged in a junkyard. Colton never responded. He simply climbed inside each morning and drove to work. Because every dollar he saved by not replacing it helped keep food on the table for Ava. One sunny afternoon, Ava walked home from school with tears in her eyes. A group of students had mocked her father's Jeep in front of everyone. They called it garbage. They joked that her family must be poor. They laughed when she tried defending her dad. That evening Colton found her sitting on the porch steps. The fading sunlight painted the neighborhood in shades of gold as she struggled to hold back tears. The sight broke his heart. More than the exhaustion. More than the bills. More than the loneliness. Nothing hurt him more than seeing his daughter suffer because of circumstances beyond her control. He sat beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The two watched the sunset together in silence. Then Colton gently explained something Ava would never forget. He told her that people often judge what they can see but rarely understand what they cannot. He explained that real character is revealed by how someone treats others, not by what they drive, wear, or own. Ava listened quietly. The lesson stayed with her. But neither of them knew that the truth behind the Jeep was about to change everything. A week later, strange events began unfolding. A black SUV appeared outside their home. It remained parked across the street for nearly 20 minutes before driving away. The next day another vehicle arrived. Then another. Neighbors noticed. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed Colton was in trouble. Others assumed debt collectors were searching for him. The speculation grew with each passing day. Meanwhile, Colton remained unaware. He continued working 12-hour shifts beneath the hot summer sun. Then came Saturday morning. The day everything changed. The neighborhood woke to an unusual sound. Engines. Not one. Not two. Many. People stepped onto their porches. Curtains moved aside. Front doors opened. A convoy of military vehicles rolled slowly down the residential street. The sight was astonishing. Several soldiers sat inside. Uniformed officers followed behind. The convoy eventually stopped directly in front of Colton's house. Silence fell over the neighborhood. Every person who had ever mocked the burned Jeep stared in disbelief. Colton had just finished mowing his small front lawn when he noticed the vehicles. Confusion crossed his face. Ava emerged from the house carrying lemonade. She froze beside him. Then a black military sedan stopped. Its door opened. A distinguished officer stepped out. His chest carried rows of ribbons and decorations. 4 stars gleamed from his uniform. A 4-star general. Gasps rippled through the crowd gathering nearby. No one could understand why such a high-ranking officer would visit an ordinary construction worker. The general walked directly toward Colton. The soldiers followed. For a moment, even Colton seemed unsure whether he should salute, shake hands, or simply stand still. Then something extraordinary happened. The general stopped. Straightened his posture. And saluted. Not the other way around. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence. The general's voice carried across the street. He explained that he had spent years searching for the man who saved his son's life. 20 years earlier, before becoming one of the military's highest-ranking leaders, the general had been an ordinary father. His teenage son had been trapped inside a burning vehicle following a catastrophic highway accident. Witnesses had fled. Emergency responders were delayed. The flames spread rapidly. Most people believed no one could survive. Until a stranger arrived. A young man driving an old Jeep. That stranger ignored the danger. Ignored the fire. Ignored the possibility of death. He risked everything to rescue several victims, including the general's son. The young hero disappeared before reporters arrived. No interviews. No publicity. No recognition. Nothing. For 2 decades the family searched for him. Recently, retired investigators revisiting the accident discovered evidence linking the rescue to Colton Hayes. The burned Jeep still carried records matching the incident. The mystery had finally been solved. Tears filled Ava's eyes as she listened. The neighbors looked toward the vehicle they had mocked for years. Suddenly those burn marks no longer looked ugly. They looked heroic. Every scar told a story. Every blackened patch represented lives saved. The general continued speaking. His son had survived. Gone on to build a family. Become a father himself. There were grandchildren alive today because of Colton's courage. The officer explained that gratitude delayed for 20 years was still gratitude owed. Then he presented Colton with a special civilian commendation recognizing extraordinary bravery. The soldiers applauded. Neighbors joined them. Many wiped away tears. But the surprises were not finished. The general revealed that several veterans organizations and private donors had learned Colton's story. Together they had established a fund to support him and Ava. Medical bills would be covered. College savings had been arranged. Home repairs would be completed. And a new vehicle had been donated. A brand new Jeep sat waiting at the end of the convoy. Ava burst into tears. Colton stood speechless. For years he had carried every burden alone. For years he had quietly sacrificed without complaint. Now kindness was finally finding its way back to him. The crowd erupted into applause. Some neighbors looked ashamed. Others openly cried. The people who once laughed at the burned Jeep now understood what it truly represented. Not poverty. Not failure. Not embarrassment. Courage. Sacrifice. Love. As the ceremony ended, the general asked one final favor. The burned Jeep should never be destroyed. It belonged in a museum dedicated to everyday heroes. A place where future generations could learn that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary acts. Months later, the Jeep stood proudly on display. Visitors stopped to read its story. Children pointed toward the scorch marks with fascination. Veterans saluted when they passed. And every weekend, Colton and Ava visited together. The little girl who had once felt embarrassed now stood taller than ever. Because she knew the truth. Her father was not defined by what he owned. He was defined by what he gave. And that made him richer than most people would ever understand. Before we reach the end, I have a special request. Comment, "True heroes wear no crown," if you believe character matters more than appearances. Years later, whenever people asked Ava about the proudest moment of her life, she never mentioned the awards, the donations, or the attention. She remembered something simpler. She remembered watching a 4-star general salute her father on a quiet neighborhood street. Because in that moment, the entire world finally saw what she had known all along. The strongest people are often the quietest. The greatest heroes rarely seek recognition. And the scars we hide may actually be the proof of lives we changed forever. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories of courage, sacrifice, and hope to people around the world. And remember, never judge someone by the vehicle they drive, the clothes they wear, or the struggles they carry. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the very person who once saved the world for someone else. The burned Jeep never became beautiful. But the story behind it did. And that story changed everything.